Your meeting too.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
I'll be here next month.
The item number 5 and the REZ number is 861-22 and the APM number is 106-07-0595. Request is made to rezone the AR2 2-acre minimum to AR1 1 acre to allow for the splitting of a parcel for the building of a new home. The requester is Bruce and Rebecca Black. The address is 5528 South Thorn Lane, Safford, Arizona. Either one of you are here? We get 2 for 1 here, huh? I know how it is.
You gotta keep an eye on me, make sure I do things right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I'm Bruce Black, and our address is 5528 South Thorn Lane. And we just want to split our property behind the current house so that we can have the bank, the mortgage on just the house and put the land behind us free and clear so we can build a site-built house on that back piece of property.
Okay. What does the wife got to say about this?
We have solar panels that we wanted to keep with the new house, and that's part of the issue with splitting the property, is having the solar panels with the new property. And I'm gonna need a handicap house here in probably a couple of years. So we're just thinking ahead about building and making sure I have a handicap house. So.
Okay, if you guys, anybody got any questions? Anybody from the audience? Okay, I need a motion.
Yeah, I think so.
I make a motion that we forward it to the board of supervisors with a favorable recommendation.
Need a second?
Second.
Have a second down there. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous? Okay, you can do what you want out there.
Thank you very much.
Item number 6, REZ numbers 862-22, the north 170 feet of west 130 feet of APM number. The 105-05-03 request is made to rezone from current A zone to RR rural residential 20,000 square feet minimum size for the purpose of putting the existing single-family home on its parcel. The requester is Ross Bryce. The address is 6856 West Safford Bryce Lane Road. Okay, who's gonna represent him? Who's representing Ross, any? Okay. You guys got any questions on this one?
No, that's out there by Jim's house, right?
Yeah, pretty close. I don't see anything wrong with it.
No.
I need a motion.
If you do have questions, I'll try to answer them. I don't see anybody from the family
Oh,
here.
got one?
Oh, okay,
Oh.
Ross is here.
Oh, Ross.
Do you wanna talk, Ross?
Okay.
He said he thought it was self-explanatory.
Yeah, yeah. So we need have you guys got any questions on it? Okay, I need a motion to move it on.
Motion that we send a favorable recommendation for it.
Second? Any more questions about it? Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay, item number 7. TA 22-01, the text amendment. Text amendment application submitted by Carol Operzire on behalf of Pamela Brooks, owner of the APM number 108-13-02, seeking to revive portions of section 4.1, 2, and 4.1.3, 9.2, and 9.4 of the planning and zoning ordinance to permit marijuana establishment that cultivates and processes marijuana to operate in the A zone as a use permitted with certain conditions or under a use permit to modify the definition of enclosed area under the marijuana regulation, to modify the distance requirements between marijuana establishments and residential zone property and property used for residential purposes, to modify how distance is measured between the marijuana establishments and adjacent properties, to modify the permissible operating hours of certain marijuana establishments. Let's see, who is gonna represent them?
Currently, I'm showing the parcel that they used as filing, but if this were to happen, it would affect countywide. It would just be part of the ordinance. So this parcel is not really relevant to, it's just for a filing purpose. So I'm gonna turn it over to him and put the slide up, and then he can go from there.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. I'm Timothy Lasota here on behalf of Pam Brooks. My address is 2198 East Calmac Road in Phoenix. And I'm here obviously because this is a zoning ordinance text amendment, so it's a change to the zoning code. It doesn't have to do with an individual property. This happens to be Pam Brooks's property, my client, but it would be a change to the zoning code, and obviously what we're talking about is something that's going to go in the agricultural zoning district, which I think that there's sort of a general realization that, and I would say kind of statewide, that these uses were initially relegated to more of the manufacturing as they are in Graham County, but there's kind of a realization that these are indeed agricultural uses, and this would take account of that fact. This would allow marijuana cultivation only in agricultural zoning districts. So in terms of, I know you just saw the property. That is the property that my client it's her property, it's the one she wants to develop, but it's not the only property that's potentially would be affected by this zoning district. In fact, it would be countywide. What happens and I think this has happened in Graham County, but it happens a lot of places where marijuana uses are greatly restricted, and what that happens is they get put in places that aren't necessarily the best. And let me give you one example of that. It's like Scottsdale Air Park, that's where Scottsdale decided, it's an industrial area, that's where they decided we're gonna put the dispensaries. It doesn't really make a ton of sense because that's kind of an industrial area, and in that case it's a retail use, but they've grown up this way. I do think this would be an improvement over the current code, which only allows marijuana in the manufacturing district. So in terms of the text amendment, it's fairly simple. The size of the property cannot exceed 300 acres, as you can see, and it has to be enclosed in a greenhouse. We're not talking about marijuana that's grown in an open field here. Also, the lot coverage can only be 50%. Now, there is a provision in the proposed text amendment that would allow someone who wants to go beyond 50% to apply for a special use permit. Obviously, all these facilities are licensed by the Arizona Department of Health Services. You need such a license in order to operate. So one other thing is that what happens, and I think there's a potential for this, if something is rezoned to manufacturing here in Graham County, you know, let's say you've got an applicant who wants to rezone, and they come to you, and it gets approved eventually by the Board of Supervisors, that zoning is there to stay. In other words, it's very difficult to revert to agricultural because of the Private Property Protection Act. It would be essentially a down zone, and it would put the county on the hook for the taking of that property. So with this, I think it gets us out of those situations because it allows for more development of the actual cultivation, not extraction and not dispensaries, so there's no retail, but they would be allowed in agricultural areas. So at least as to cultivation, I think it's gonna basically take the wind out of these sort of spot zoning cases, because it wouldn't be necessary to try to rezone to a use that frankly doesn't make a ton of sense. A zoning district manufacturing that doesn't make a ton of sense when we're talking about agriculture. Okay, so the definitions I think are straightforward. I think they, essentially what we're talking about harvesting, farming, we're talking about growing the plants, that type of thing. And you know, we're not talking about temporary structures such as hoop houses, things like that. We are talking about an actual building where it would have to go in. So, let's see. This is so if an entity wanted to exceed the 50% lot coverage, they could allow for a special use permit, but as you know, that's a political process and it goes through this commission as well as the Board of Supervisors. So, but if someone wants to do that, they do need a conditional use permit. This also clarifies that no dispensaries will be allowed in this zoning district. There's also some protections built in here essentially, and obviously these are common in zoning codes, but you know, we're talking 1,000 feet from residential. We're talking 1,000 feet from schools, churches, parks, those things. And as I said earlier, we're not talking about retail, and to the extent this does affect retail in that operating hours of retail establishments would be 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. They could not exceed those hours. So that is the one provision that applies to retail, even though this text amendment does not allow retail in the agricultural zoning district. So I think in summary, I think if you think of marijuana, it's an agriculture. It's a plant, it's grown, and it belongs in an agricultural district, and I think this recognizes that. Now, when you're talking about dispensary, totally different thing. That's retail, that's, you know, you come in, you're paying me for a product, that belongs in a different area. But marijuana, at its base, is an agricultural product that is grown, and this takes account of that. It provides protections in there that has to be enclosed. There's buffers, so I think that nearby property owners are accounted for, but I think this takes the county in a direction that will make these marijuana fights much less prevalent and much less divisive. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Got any questions out there?
So what you're proposing then is, where would they make changes and made it commercial? And if you did it this way, then we wouldn't deal with commercial pieces, failures. If a company goes out there and fails, and then that it would just revert, it'd stay agricultural versus be done.
Mr. Chairman and members of the commission, that is exactly right, and we think that is part of the beauty of this is you're not gonna have these spot zoning cases where you end up with the, you know, the MX zoning designation. You know, someone comes to town and you know, they go the way of the dodo and they don't survive, and you're stuck with a zoning district that you've created to accommodate someone that just doesn't make any sense where it is.
Well, they can do whatever they want with it when they go sell it. They go bankrupt or whatever.
That's right, and you're not going to get that back to agricultural, even if the person who shows up and does business may change, but the land designation doesn't change unless obviously this body and the Board of Supervisors ultimately approves it. But that's a very costly prospect. It basically doesn't happen anywhere.
You couldn't grow, if you quit growing marijuana, you couldn't grow tomatoes, is that correct? It's not agricultural now. See what I'm saying? You built the greenhouse for one
Sure.
purpose, and now you've zoned it, and then there's no more, that goes away, what can you grow in that greenhouse?
That's a very good question. So I think that's another reason why this is valid, because you're not going to end up with sort of these, for lack of a better term, these orphan kind of spot zoning places.
You know, I've got MX is where marijuana is grown, okay? MX can be on the top of the hill, anywhere. We've got them that way here in the county. It's not just agriculture. MX is not just agriculture. You understand that?
Mr. Chairman, I do, but I think this is a more natural I think it's a more natural place for marijuana to fit into the code, is all I would say.
Well, I just want to clarify, you know,
So-
agriculture, no. MX is, big part of our MXs are out on the hills and stuff where they couldn't farm, where they could put cattle outfits in, and so forth. So you need to change your thought on that part. Have you guys got any questions?
I have a question. So say a grow site gets approved, goes in on a property, and then the neighboring properties that are general land use or agriculture, at that point, you know, typically properties develop, homes are built, but now within that radius, am I correct in presuming that no one can put residential there now? It's affected the neighbors, because within 1,000 feet of every of every grow site that goes in, which you're asking for every general land use acre to be capable of doing that, and therefore every neighbor around them is potentially trapped into agriculture and general land use forever. That's why we have it on MX, in my opinion, is because people can find MX and they know what they're getting into if they buy a property next to one.
Mr. Chairman and members of the commission, the way the text amendment is written, so and maybe this might be a better question for Steve, but I think that it only affects marijuana uses. I don't think it would. I think if you have a situation, and typically the way it works is if a code says that you cannot locate a marijuana use within 1,000 feet of a residential district, what it means is if the marijuana use is first, then the marijuana use is established. I don't think it means the converse, that it's sort of, because the way it's written is that you can't locate within 1,000 feet of a residence. I don't think it means a residence can't locate within 1,000 feet of a marijuana greenhouse.
So that wouldn't put the marijuana thing in violation?
Mr. Chairman and members of the commission, no, because if the marijuana use is first, then it would not be in violation if something happens to move into next to it. Now, different codes are written different ways, so you could have a situation where it did prohibit it prohibited both uses essentially, and whichever is the first use goes there. I think this only prohibits marijuana from being located near a residential district or a church or something else. I don't think it prohibits a church or residents from being located 1,000 feet from a grow site.
Well, this ordinance has been, in order for a long time, and we haven't run into any problem with the problems that you're talking about.
Mr. Chairman, these ordinances are always changing, and I would argue that there are always new ideas, and there are always different ways of doing things that might be better. Obviously, it's this body's decision. It's your decision whether you agree with that. But I know it's been in effect a while, but I don't think that in itself is a sort of an argument not to change it. And I do think that the current situation does lead to the potential problem of having these orphan areas. I know that's the term I kind of just coined right now, but where you've got something that's been specifically rezoned for a purpose, and that purpose has evaporated, and now you kind of have an area that doesn't make any sense.
Well, maybe I shouldn't say it, but we have people who come in from California and try to tell us how to do things in Graham County. You know what my answer is? This is damn Graham County, and this is the way we like it.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I would say to that, I've lived my entire life in Arizona, and I generally share that sentiment, especially when they tend to bring some of the things that they've done in California and reasons they're leaving with them. But I don't think this is a California idea at all.
Well, we're slow to take because Graham County voted down marijuana. So we have to think of what the voters voted for in Graham County. As a board, we're here to represent the voters, and the voters voted it down, in our county. So what do you say to that?
Mr. Chairman, what I would say to that is I do agree that you do work for the people of Graham County, and their sentiments are very important. It's obviously a statewide law. I think obviously that's never going to go on the ballot again because it's been legalized. I think if it were put on the ballot in a couple years, 10 years, 5 years, I think that the sentiments would change. I know they have where I'm from. The public voted against narrowly, and I get the years wrong. I think it was 2016, but where I'm from, they voted no, and in 2020, they voted yes. And it was by, I think, about it was a significant swing. I think as the use takes shape, I think some of the fears are you have real world examples that you can take instead of hypotheticals, and I think that's one of the reasons that it's become more accepted is we've seen it in a lot of places, and some of the fears have not materialized. I do respect the fact that not everybody loves marijuana, and it failed in Graham County.
Mr. Chairman? Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
don't think I could even make a decision on this today. There's the unintended consequences of these changes. I'm gonna definitely have to do more research and take more time to work through this. And I couldn't reach a decision today. If you would like to put a motion to table this item until our next scheduled planning and zoning meeting, that's my thoughts on this issue. There's just a lot in it.
You got a motion? Okay. I need a second.
Yes. Oh. Okay. Okay, so should I withdraw that for the time or let it stand?
We'll let it.
Okay,
We'll let it stand.
I'll withdraw that motion for now and let others speak.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, well, we're gonna, are you through?
I am done, Mr. Chairman, unless you or anyone else has additional questions. Thank you.
Okay, we got some people here, we'll give them the first chance to speak here. Let's see, Vance Bryce.
Good morning. My name is Vance Bryce. I'm the Executive Director of the Graham County Chamber of Commerce. We're located at 1051 West Thatcher Boulevard in Safford. Excuse me. And I'm attending this meeting on behalf of my 371 member organization in support of this text amendment. Our mission at the Chamber is to is to advance the quality of life for everyone in the Gila Valley through connection, leadership, and tourism. As part of our plan to achieve advancement in our quality of life, we encourage our community and our governments to create and maintain a business-friendly regulatory environment. Currently in Graham County, our zoning ordinance requires that cannabis be cultivated in only MX industrial zoning. This business regulation is unique to Graham County. In other counties in Arizona, cultivation is allowed in zoning districts other than industrial. We have an aberrant code that is unfriendly to business because it forces them to create custom solutions and jump through specific Graham County hoops and obstacles. Cannabis is currently highly regulated by the state, as it should be. You need an ADHS license to operate, and even in other counties, cannabis cultivation is allowed in agricultural zones when the use is permitted with certain conditions, as it would be in this text amendment. When we deviate from what other counties are doing and add undue burdens on top of state regulations for businesses to operate, we create an unfriendly regulatory environment for business. Let's get on the same page and be a friendly regulatory community in which businesses are excited to create jobs and invest. By recommending approval to the Board of Supervisors, you are solving an actual problem for businesses in Graham County, while at the same time getting on the same page with how we do business in this state. Thank you for your time.
Okay, we have a Richardson. There's two of them.
Good morning. I am Reed Richards. I own Double R Communications, and I'm the president of the Graham County Chamber of Commerce. So what Vance just said, I pretty much ditto. I think that everybody takes the chamber stance on stuff like this and think, oh, they're just about the bottom dollar. They're just about, and it's true. That's part of our job as the chamber, as any business owner, really, is to try to, promote business in Graham County, promote tax revenue in Graham County. And I think that the part of it that I have a problem with is exactly what we were talking about earlier. Like, Graham County voted down marijuana, and I'm the first guy to jump up and down and say, yeah, don't use it. Don't use it. I mean, we on the radio all the time, we're the guys saying, don't do drugs. We work with Kathy Grimes, you know, week in and week out. I worked with her yesterday on another program, an anti-drug program. I think the thing that I feel is a confusing deal is we're not asking people to use marijuana. They're gonna use it in wherever. We're asking to be able to you know, enjoy the tax revenue of growing it. Just like, to me, if you grow barley, you know, here in Graham County and you're making beer out of it and you don't want to drink beer, then don't drink beer. You know, somebody else is gonna do it, they obviously are. The other thing about it is this text amendment, I feel like, you know, we're seeing it right now. We're seeing a, you know, planning and zoning or the Board of Supervisors, I don't know which, approved a grow that's failing. And it's MX zoned. So when it fails, anything can come in there. Literally anything. You could be living next to a nuclear waste dump because it's wide open. MX zoning is wide open. So that's, while we're, you know, talking about what we can grow in there, it's also, to me, it's a protection for Graham County as far as protecting that same property. Yeah, you can go grow something else there, but you can't open a dump. You can't have I saw one thing that said you can't have a sex shop because it's zoned agriculture instead of MX. And to me, this text amendment is about protecting Graham County, not from marijuana. That's up to us to educate kids, just like it is on drinking and driving and all of that stuff. To me, it's a protection. This text amendment is a protection for these little spots that we zone MX, and if they fail, anybody can do whatever they want with that land. And that's really all I have to say, except for, don't forget the Salsa Festival this weekend. Come out and see us. Thank you.
Got anybody else in this audience? No complaint after we vote. You didn't say what you wanted to say. It's all open. Okay, we'll make a decision here.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to table this to our next scheduled planning and zoning meeting next month.
I need a second before we can vote.
A second.
Okay, and any discussion, more discussion? I've got a little discussion. Yes, I was here when we made the zoning deal. And it was hard for us to make. We made it to our best of our ability. Yes, there might need some changes. We've talked about it. Steve has talked about some of the changes that we might do. If we're going to change, let's get our changes in with it. So now, all for it?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, it'll be heard again next month. Okay, get my paper over here. This guy here's pouring cement. He wants to get back and smooth it out. Okay, we got to set up for manufacturing use an RR rural residential 20,000 square feet lot size zone. For the requester is Nancy Clark, who is planning on building a new home in this location. The address is 4330 South US Highway 191. So we need to set that up for in the planning zoning for next month. Need a motion.
So moved.
Need a second here? Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Supervisor Steve, what went there?
At your previous meeting, you had change from A to RR, rural residential, 20,000 square foot minimum at 3464 West Rowley Drive for Reed Larson. And that went to the board and did get approved. I don't know of, I think that's the only thing that went to the board out of your last meeting. Does that sound correct? That's all I show on this meeting minutes, and my memory's shot.
Well, looks like half the public walked out on us. Anything from the public? Nothing out there? Okay. It's time for adjournment. Call for adjournment.
Can I ask a question, just
Sure.
because it's been said to me? Did you guys want to have some kind of a work session on this, or you want to come back, some kind of an executive session?
Yes.
I think we should.
How do we need to facilitate that? Okay. Do you guys? So if this is the third Wednesday of the month, what about the first Wednesday of next month? Is that I don't know even what that.
If it's in the morning.
Suggestion,
I won't be here next Wednesday. That's our Graham County Board. Right?
Sounds like several of us are not available for that one.
If you guys have a suggestion or a time, I mean, it doesn't have to be at 9 o'clock on a Wednesday. It can be whenever. We can facilitate it. I just think if some of you do want to do that, I think we need to talk about it today.
Date on Monday.
26th? The following day is the second. Third? Yeah, I'm good on the third.
Yeah, there's a board meeting. It would have to be in the afternoon to do that on a first or third Monday.
What if well, it puts it off to where we don't have much time to think, I guess. I was gonna say, what if we had it just the morning of our next scheduled meeting, but it really probably doesn't give us enough time to process that.
Like 8 o'clock or something?
Yeah, I was thinking 8 o'clock, but nonetheless, that may not be ideal either.
What do you guys think about a week from today?
When is that?
28th of this month?
I could probably be here.
I can probably be there.
Yes, I don't have an early out tag, so.
Yeah.
Since I'm like that.
Does 9 o'clock work for you, or does something else work better?
Is it gonna be a work session or executive session? What are we shooting for?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we can do,
Okay,
right. I think we could do both.
okay.
So was it 9 in?
9 a.m.
9 a.m. a week from today. That gives us time to notice it. Yeah, would you please?
Will we meet in one of those other rooms?
We could have it in the upstairs room if we needed to, if that's available. It'd be nicer to have this space.
Well, Steve, we can take some of those things that we talked about before, about the MX and all of that. If we're gonna change anything, let's change it to
Well,
change everything. Get our ideas.
we could generically word it so we could discuss some of that. We couldn't make any decisions, but we
I
could,
know,
we
yeah,
could
we
make it
could.
where we could talk about it.
Yeah,
You want to do that?
yeah.
Okay, we'll write that into the notice so that if you guys get off track outside of this, we'll still be okay. called out, so we're good there. We already had it reserved.
What you got on your 28?
We had a Board of Adjustments hearing penciled in there, and that has fallen apart, so. I think we're good, don't you?
Okay, so we're gonna have it on the 28th of this month. Everybody understand that? 28th. And anything else you guys got? We are adjourned. You can get there.
And no